Hi, this is Alexandra with CJ's Elite Custom Competition Suits and Glam Competition Jewelry. We carry posing suits for men and women, both amateurs and pros. We carry bikini, fitness, figure, bodybuilding, and also men's classic physique shorts. We're doing a Black Friday sale. All of our suits are 50% off. Check us out online.
You're looking for the best? Look no further. Pride Nutrition, the highest quality supplement line in the industry. Today only, use the discount code MMR30 and receive 30% off and a free shaker cup to the first 50 orders.
Hey everybody, Mandus here with Midwest Muscle Report. And I have the honor of interviewing a man who has been doing the interviewing for the better part of 40 years. The foremost expert in our sport. Really needs no introduction, but for those of you that don't know, you need to know. The one and only Peter McGough. Peter, how are you?
I'm great, Mandus. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, Peter, I met you. It's only been about a year and a half. It was at the Tampa Pro last year. You were coming off stage. The show was over. I was sitting down, and David Bay was walking in front of you, and I said, David, you know, I've always wanted to meet Peter. He said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. He said, Peter, Mandus, Peter. We sat down, and 5 hours later, they were shuffling us out of the area. It seems like you're the type of personality everyone I've talked to says, oh, that's Peter. How is it that you can connect with people so well and so easily?
Well, in your case, was that you had such a passion for bodybuilding, not just present-day bodybuilding, but the history of it, that, I mean, I never sat down there thinking we'd be there for that long.
Right.
But it just continued, so why stop something that was very enjoyable for me, to be honest? You know?
And I'm glad to hear that, because not only did we have a good time, but I felt like my bodybuilding IQ went up threefold. And we'll fast forward a few months. Sarah and I, my significant other, were down in Florida a few months after that. And we had a chance to come by and stay by you guys, you and your lovely wife, Ann. And again, as we sat out back, you know, it started out in the afternoon, and the next thing you know, Peter and I were like a couple of college kids. It was 5 a.m. And there it was again, talking about life, talking about the sport. The sport has grown so much in the last 15 years, with Mr. Mannion obviously spearheading, bringing in new divisions, really taking us forward. Where do you see the sport going in the next 15 years?
Well, I think the great spurt this last few years has been the fact that there's been a lot of new classes, which has allowed people to enter competition no matter what the ideal is. You know, you didn't have to be a hardcore bodybuilder, male or female, so it's really opened up. But the kicker to that is that we've ended up with all these classes. It's probably, you know, been more popular than we thought with the people that want to enter and actually get up on stage. So I think there's got to be something happening there where we start to look at it a bit more. Maybe not all the contests have all the classes. You know, I'm not a great one for saying let's spread the nationals over 3 or 4 days, because I think that just becomes a marathon. And also I think in some ways the judging, you know, when you've got these massive classes where there's 40 in a class, you tell me as a competitor, you know, you sort the first 10 out, and then you go down and down and down and down, and the last 5 are left. Do you want to be that last 5? Would you rather say, you know, you 10 of the top 10, the other 30, thank you very much, they can all go off and say I was 11th, you know? So, rather than that being left right to the end with the last 3 or 4. So there's discussions taking place, I know, to sort of alleviate the pressure it shows now.
I think some of us have conversations about the criteria to qualify for nationals nowadays. Back when I started, and back even earlier, you had to win a class at a regional level. Then it was top 2. And now qualification is top 4 or top 5 for
Yeah.
the junior show, which in my opinion starts to dilute
Sure.
the national scene, which is what you're talking about. Now the last 10 guys, they really needed more time on a regional
Sure.
level.
Yeah.
And then we're having these national shows where there's 1,500 athletes. Do you think they just simply need to go back and maybe move it top 2 for nationals, top 3 for a junior show? Wouldn't that be a good solution?
I think so, and you can follow that through to actually the nationals itself. In the bodybuilding, the top 2 in each class get a pro card. Let's be blunt, most of them are not ready for a pro card.
Right.
They enter a pro contest, they're out of the depth, they get disillusioned, they drop out the sport. In the old days, sorry to point the old days, when pro cards were harder to come by, you would get people like Flex Wheeler who would have to enter the nationals, the USAs 3 or 4 times, Chris Cormier, those sort of guys. Bob Ciccarello entered 14 qualifiers before he got a pro. He had to win an overall at the USA, not be second in a class. So that shunts through as well. I think that the amateurs need to stay in the amateurs until they're good enough to be pros, and then they'll be better pros.
Now, the counter to that argument, Peter, is there are far more competitors nowadays, so you need to give more pro cards. But in retrospect, there's more competitors in the other classes, not necessarily bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So I can understand 2 pro cards for men's physique when you've got 200 or 250 athletes at every national show, 2 cards in bikini. But then in bodybuilding, the numbers are decreasing. They probably do need to move back to, if not only class winners, maybe the top 3 of the overall.
Yeah. But I think, with, say, the men's physique class and the bikini classes, when they started out, you needed to create a pro section.
Right.
So give a few more pro cards.
Correct.
But now we've got enough pros in those divisions to sort of continue. So don't give that. I mean, it's a little bit like, maybe this is unkind, but, there's a sort of a feeling today in some circles generally that competitive sports don't make a kid feel like he's a loser. Everybody gets a prize. It's a bit like this now. Everybody gets a pro card, rather than, you're really special if you get that pro card.
You earned it.
Yeah,
You really earned it. I absolutely don't disagree with you. When you look at the past generations of the sport in general, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and then this decade, where would you rank? How would you rank the different decades from top to bottom?
Well, the 80s was a time of, the 70s was the so-called golden era with Arnold and the guys in goals, Jim Venice. There wasn't a lot of money about, there wasn't a lot of structure. There was one pro contest, really, the Mr. Olympia. Now and again, there'd be a Mr. International. The 80s saw this sort of step forward to organising circuits. Pro, how do you get a pro card? The nationals came into being. 1982 was the first nationals, and Lee Haney won. And so it became much more structured and much more clear to youngsters getting into it, the steps they had to take.
Okay.
So that was a real good platform to take off. To me, that led to the 90s then, where by a fluke, whatever you want to call it, you got a clutch of bodybuilders, who all came together, the Sean Rays, Flex Wheeler, Paul Dillard, Dorian Yates, Porter Cottrell, I'm missing some of them. The top 8 or 9 were like real superstars, and you had 5 guys every year who could possibly win the Olympia.
Made it exciting.
Yeah, there was some sort of, it wasn't inevitable, even though, Yates won consecutively. There was like, well, Flex might do it, Leveroni might do it, Sean Ray might do it. I don't get the same feeling today in the 2000s. The 2000s is when I think we started to move a little bit away from, we started to move more towards the size. People say it was the 90s with Yates. I think it was more the 2000s, where, for instance, Jay Cutler, in my opinion, beat Ronnie Coleman at the 2001 Olympia with this shredded, shrink-wrapped, tight look.
Right.
But Ronnie's size beat him. So what did Jay do then? He put on more
bigger.
size till he caught him up and beat him. So that was when the size thing took off. And then we had, the aesthetics suffered a little bit. We never used to see a distended
Quite
belly.
a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're one of the people who has really taken a hard stance against just the mass monsters who really the shape started to go away.
Yeah.
The huge distension. I know Arnold, really made a point. But I heard you talking about that before Arnold came out and said anything.
Yeah.
What about this generation? What about this decade? Where do you really see that fitting in compared to the last 3 or 4 decades?
Well, there's so many guys competing now at professional and amateur level. I really, and this is personal, and it doesn't mean I'm right, it's an opinion, it's just my opinion.
But the opinion of the foremost expert on the sport, so it might carry slightly more weight than the average.
The checks in the post. Yeah, that in a way, the classic physique division was created. I think that should have been the main division. We should have said, come on guys, let's get this together, let's get balance. Condition is absolutely important, but I think we've gone from aesthetic, and you can be an aesthetic freak as well, we've gone from that more to freakiness, more muscle, doesn't matter where it is, just pile it on.
Right.
I mean, in many ways, people like Flex Wheeler, he had great shape because of places he didn't have muscle. He didn't have big, thick obliques or anything of this.
Right.
So he had gaps to show the mounds.
Right.
And now it's like, let's just get that volume on there and see where we end up.
Yeah. Who do you think currently of the up and coming pros do you think has the greatest chance, or if there's 2 people that you think in the next few years are really going to make the biggest splash?
I think Dallas McCarver is one to watch. Because of the way he looks, his size and everything, but he's still only 25.
It's unbelievable.
He's a baby in terms of that. You've got others that are coming through with the there's a certain section of, say, pro bodybuilders today, and this isn't a criticism, they've maxed out. They can maybe do better condition this content, but there's no more growth to take place. Ones that can improve are people like Dallas McCarver. He's still on improvement. Big Ramy is. I mean, even though he's big, I think he made a little bit of a breakthrough the end of this year to really, he came in with not shape, but more separation. So he's one. Justin Compton seems to have, he's up and down, but he's still young. I think he's still got the time to get there. Cody Montgomery's out there in the wings waiting. I think he got a bad deal last year. There are probably others that are escaping my mind, but look for guys who haven't maxed out yet,
Right.
But as far as, they're guys that can maybe be challenging Phil Heath in 2 or 3 years. I mean, Phil, he seems to not be a lot of people's cup of tea, but
he is the champ, and he's hands down been the champ. Really, no one has pushed him in the last couple of years.
I mean, the fact that he can win at 95%, if we can say that, shows how good he is.
Right.
He's got everything. He's got this 3D look to him.
Absolutely.
The first time I signed him for Weider, based on just seeing 2 photographs of him on Get Big. Nobody had ever heard of him. I said, this guy's got quality I've never seen before.
Yeah.
We flew him in. My wife and Anne, we picked him up from the airport. It was like, he's not going to get away this one, because I just knew who he was going to be. We haven't seen the guy yet who can beat Phil. It'll either be Phil that'll beat Phil because he'll come in way off, or maybe one of these other guys will make a giant leap forward. But it's funny, when you're waiting for the next Mr. Olympia to come along, often it's not who you think. It's like when Lee was winning, Lee Haney, everybody thought, well, the success is going to be Sean Ray, Lee, and out of the woods came Dorian Yates. Nobody had heard of him.
Yeah.
Dorian wins, well, who's still going to be Sean Ray? And then suddenly Ronnie, comes out with this completely new look. So often it's somebody that you don't expect. It's not a regular guy from the lineup. It's somebody new who comes bang.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is your personal favorite champion of all time?
Well, it's not difficult for me to say, but often people, I knew he'd say that. Dorian Yates.
I knew you'd say that.
I was very, very lucky. I saw him in his first contest. We lived 40 miles apart. So geographically, I had luck. It wasn't like he was competing in Tennessee. And we're going back to 85 now, where there was no internet, emails.
Correct.
Nobody was sending shots on iPhones and all the rest of it. I got to know him, and we meshed personally. We had a similar outlook, if I can say it. Do what you're going to do. Don't tell people what you're going to do. Prove it. Don't say, I can do this. Just do it and prove it. And funnily enough, we moved up the ladder the same time. As he moved up the bodybuilding ladder, I sort of came up my ladder. The funny thing is, he was signed for WIDA, which was the holy grail of bodybuilding, to get a WIDA contract.
Absolutely.
At the 1991 NIDA Champions, which he won. And that was the same day I was approached by WIDA to get a contract with them. So we often laugh about it. We both moved up together.
Parallel lines.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's but why do I say Dorian Yates? Because mentally, that's how he won contests. There's never been anybody tougher than him. You look at the injuries that he came back from.
Yeah.
A lot of guys would have said it's impossible, and it really was impossible. I can tell you the backstories to all those injuries, but he's got this drive, but also this reality. He realized he had to train as hard as he did, as dedicated as he had to be to win. He couldn't coast because he knew the Sean Rays, the Flex Wheelers had better genetics, and he had to keep on top and destroy them with condition and just sheer hardness and mass. Yeah.
Who do you think is the greatest champion of all time?
Well, I'd like to have seen Ronnie Coleman and Dorian together, at the peaks. Now, most people would say Ronnie would blitz Dorian off the stage, but the thing that Dorian had was this hardness, this dryness, this granite that tended to make anybody, a guy could come on and say, he's in shape. Stands next to Dorian, he's watery, he's soft, it's a difficult thing to compare eras. All you can be is the best of your era.
Correct.
And that's the end of it. But Ronnie and Dorian would have been a clash of giants. We're in this modern age now. Someday somebody's going to come up with holograms of these two. Can you imagine?
Absolutely.
If you had them walking on stage?
Yeah.
That would draw 10,000 people or more to watch that. Yeah.
I'm in for that. I'm in for that.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with the one and only Peter McGough.
Hi, this is Alexandra with CJ's Elite Custom Competition Suits and Glam Competition Jewelry. We carry posing suits for men and women, both amateurs and pros. We carry bikini, fitness, figure, bodybuilding, and also men's classic physique shorts. We're doing a Black Friday sale. All of our suits are 50% off. Check us out online.